We were involved with the Queensland Department of Education to commission a trial of the OrCam in various schools to see whether it would have a benefit for children with reading difficulty that was not vision related. We knew it would work for kids with vision issues, but we wanted to concentrate on reading difficulties beyond that. So Jeff, we might talk a bit about the background to the trial and the results of the trial.
Absolutely, thank you, Peter. So yes, we were very fortunate enough to be provided by OrCam 10 devices that we used to determine the capacity for the OrCam to support students from a reading support perspective. And this was the first time that this had actually been explored anywhere in the world. We were very fortunate to be part of that project. We put the devices into 9 different schools. So we had 10 devices, 10 devices, 9 schools, and one school, which was a prep through to year 12 school, we actually put 2 devices in there just to see what the impact was to have multiple devices in the same school. You can see the list of schools here. So the different regions, whether they were prep through to year 10 schools, whether they were primary schools. Some of these schools were also regional schools, and Arakoon State School, for those who are not familiar with Arakoon, and also, where are we? Pomperour State School. Those 2 schools are Indigenous communities, so they're remote communities in the far north Queensland, and they have the main population of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students. So we had a wide range of different students and different schools and different sectors that we used that trial with. When we were trialing it with the students, we asked them what the focus or the disability was for the students. The majority of the students that were trialed with the devices, and you'll see here that adds up to more than 10. So some schools actually trial the device with more than 1 student. The majority of students who were identified as having a learning difficulty, 1 student was identified as having dyslexia. Having said that, some of these students who have a learning difficulty may also have had dyslexia, it just wasn't identified. 3 of the students also had ASD, autism spectrum, and 1 of the students was being used where English was an additional language for that student. In the areas of the curriculum, so they then trialled the OrCam across a range of different areas of the curriculum. The main area obviously was in English, but we also found, interestingly enough, but logically when you think about it, it being used in areas such as math, science, HAS, which is the human and studies of society, sorry. The arts, technology wasn't used in languages or languages other than English. In relation to math, science and HAS, it's important because particularly in the area of maths, because many students struggle with their maths activities, not because they can't do the math, but because they can't read the question. And as a result, many schools were using it to help the students to read the question so that they could then undertake the actual maths activities, which was very important, because when we're looking at maths, we shouldn't be assessing the student's reading ability. We should be assessing the student's maths ability. We then also looked at the area where it was identified that the OrCam was most effective. Certainly majority was in English, but there was also some indication that in other areas it was effective as well for some of the students. Now we then looked at, did it increase the engagement? Because that was the main focus. Did using the OrCam increase the students' capacity to engage with reading tasks? And certainly the majority of students were identified that it increased their engagement. All of the students, it was indicated or identified that it increased the students' engagement, but we then wanted to know by how much. So the majority of students, their level of engagement was identified as increasing by at least 25%. Some of the students, 3 of the students, the schools identified that it more than doubled the level of engagement of the students with those reading tasks, and that's fairly significant. So every student was identified as increasing their engagement to some degree, certainly more than half. It was more than 25%, but there was still around a quarter of the students where it was indicated that they more than doubled how much they were engaging with written content, and that's a significant result. So some of the other things that we identified was 88% of the students, of the school, sorry, indicated that they considered the OrCam as an effective tool for all of the students who engaged with the trial. All of the schools indicated that every student increased their engagement with written content. We mentioned that before. All schools indicated that every target student from the trial was more engaged with written content. So not only did it increase the amount that they were engaging, but as they were using the device, they were more engaged with the information that was being provided to them through that written format. The schools also indicated generally that the students were less distracted, they were less frustrated by using the OrCam, and also, which is a huge thing, they were less likely to engage in disruptive behaviour. And there's a lot of research around why students have disruptive behaviour in schools, and in many instances it's because they become disengaged with their tasks, with their learning tasks, and in many instances that learning task will have a significant reading component to it. So the level of behaviour, aberrant behaviour, significantly reduced as a result of the students using the OrCam. They were observed as being more eager to select books, which again is a big thing. These kids were actually going out, kids that would never go out before and say, can I read this, or can I go and grab this book off the shelf in the library or whatever. They were more eager to actually do those things. So it's re-engaging the students with those learning tasks and doing that independent of the teacher having to require the student or forcing the students to be doing those things. The students' reading task endurance was noted as having a significant improvement. So not only were they engaging for more often, but they were engaging in reading for longer. So they were maintaining those tasks for longer. And then over 62% of the students were either highly motivated to use the OrCam or sought the OrCam out. Now, the other thing that was important with regards to the trial was that there were a number of schools who indicated that not necessarily as a direct result of the students using the OrCam, but after the students had been using the OrCam for a set amount of time, that their outcomes improved. Now, it's very difficult for us to be able to identify to how much that we can contribute that to the OrCam and to the students actually getting the information through the OrCam. But certainly part of that could be attributed to the students' engagement with reading, to the amount of time that they are now reading, and ultimately then learning more content is improving their outcome. So it was a very interesting trial that took place with regards to the OrCam.
What you were seeing there was just a summary of some of the takeout points from the trial. The actual report is a lot longer than that, but with many very exciting findings.